Good evening. We call the meeting of Liberty County Board of Commissioners to order. Mr. Brown, has the meeting been properly advertised?
Yes, sir, it has.
Thank you. Good to see everyone. Happy day after Labor Day. Hello to everybody who's following us on Facebook. Thank you so much for being diligent. I'm getting to hear some reviews now from people about watching us on Facebook. So we hope that we're doing our best to serve the people well. At this time, we have Pastor Richard Hayes here, who pastors New Day Community Church in the city of Walthamville, who will lead us in our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for that.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Special happy birthday belated to our Chairman, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir.
On tonight. Let us go before the Lord in prayer. Most gracious and Heavenly Father, we are so thankful and honored just to be here on tonight. We thank you for how you've taken care of us and watched over us. We thank you for all the many blessings that you bestowed upon us. Now, God, we ask that you would continue to bless and watch over this community, even as we tackle and deal with the effects of COVID-19 and how it's affecting our medical personnel and those that are in leadership making decisions concerning this, and those that are being affected by it in their bodies and in their health. Lord, we ask you would just bless them, that you would watch over them, that you would keep this community on one accord and in good health, and that you would continue to allow us to flourish and to continue to grow. We thank you for what you've done and for what you're getting ready to do. Give these leaders insight and wisdom and understanding, and allow them to do the things that will help to better this community and all those that are affected by it, for not only now, but even in our future, that they prepare the way. And we thank you for what you're going to do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Frazier did indicate that he'll be a little late arriving, so we'll expect him in a little while. Okay, approval of the August meeting minutes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Motion and second, we approve the minutes for the month of August. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand, please. Thank you. Minutes are approved. Awards and presentation, Gmass Award. Mr. Hunter Keys here. Come forward, sir.
Well, greetings, Commissioners. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm here representing both the CRC as the Director of Information Services and GMIS. GMIS is the Government Management Information Systems. It's a professional organization here in the state of Georgia where IT professionals get together twice a year, share ideas, have training, and oftentimes use our networking to help each other get through hurdles in the IT process. This year at the spring conference, GMIS awarded 4 awards to its personnel, and one of them was the Government to Government Award. One of them is Government to Citizens. There is a outstanding staff person and a Bright Star. And this one here I'm to present is for the Government to Government Collaborative Award that I'd like to present to Clint Stanley. He, along with Camden County and McIntosh County, came together to form what's called SEGRASS, Southeast Georgia Regional Alliance for Spatial Solutions. And this group, through economies of scale, created a single 911 database that allows to be next-gen 911 compliant. So they started a year ago with manuals on the addressing process, went on to build a schema, and then finally have loaded that up and have an anomaly marking system where if a bad address can't go in anymore, it actually blocks it. Down the road, we see this as a web service where people could actually add an address from a clerk's office, and all the rules would apply, prohibiting them from adding a bad address. So at this moment, I'd like to give Clint the award and just thank him for his partnership. Thank you, Commissioner.
Speech.
It's an honor to receive this. Hunter was a big part of it, and we did a lot of work on this project, so it's great to get this.
Hunter, come. We try to make it a Kodak moment. If you come, you guys will come here, stand behind us, and we won't cheat Clint out of his moment in time. Whitney Houston song. Commissioners, if y'all will come around. Answer them up. Congratulations, sir. All right. Congratulations, sir. All right, I'm gonna try my best to keep us on key tonight. We got a lengthy agenda. We want to make sure that we have ample time to discuss items I and J. So try to keep us on track if you would. Appreciate that. All righty. Water service request, Josh Wheeler.
You want to? Yep.
Marcus Sack.
I do have a couple years left.
Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Marcus Sack representing Mr. Josh Wheeler today, who is requesting some additional water for a proposed subdivision on Bill Carter Road. The tract of land is around 163 acres, of which portions of it consist of wetlands and a swamp. We're anticipating 200 units for this subdivision, which would equate to 80,000 gallons. Mr. Wheeler's just requesting that that water be allocated to this subdivision as part of his due diligence, so that he feels comfortable spending the investment to make the subdivision go, knowing that he has water. The sewer will be septic.
Acclimate me, if you will, a little bit. Acclimate us a little bit, the property you're referencing.
Say that one more time.
Acclimate us to the property that you're referencing. I know you said Bill
Oh,
Carter
so
Road,
it's
but
it's known as, I think, Tract 5 of the Sassafras Plantation. It's on Bill Carter Road. I don't have a map to present to you.
is it,
Okay, that'd be wonderful.
You know where the Walthouse service station used to be at?
mhm.
That's about the center of that property coming all the way back down to, there's a brick house, you know where Reverend Diane stayed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right across, there's a brick house across from there. Bishop A. Jones' house.
Mm.
So in that area and it backs up to, we built the other house in there.
I'm not real sure. It's not far from the intersection. There's a 10-inch line that goes down. I think it turns into an 8-inch line, and it fronts the property.
Okay, okay. Just want to kind of get a feel of what you're talking about.
Yes, sir. Sorry about that. I should have.
Commissioner Stevens, I think you need your mic on. I think you need your mic on. Turn your mic on.
Okay,
All right.
yeah.
All right, any further questions from Mr. Wheeler?
Well, I just got, Mary, now you said where the, Mr. Billy Walthall's service station, is this property includes the service station, or is it
No, it's across the road. Across the road
across
from-
the road
across
from
the road
the-
from the service station.
from the service station? Okay, okay.
There used to be a teaching well out there many years ago, and
Well,
fish pond, and
I'm not near as old as you, but that's fine.
I know you were too young for
Yeah,
that one.
okay. I know where it is now.
Well, let's say we have some potential for some more customers for our water line. All right.
200 units, Marcus?
Yes, sir. We're thinking 200 units.
So, yeah, so that's where it's at.
More houses in the country.
So that's 200?
More houses. We're running out of country in Liberty County.
What, do you know the price range, or do we have a subdivision that I could kind of?
We're still early on, but it would be typical of what we're used to seeing in our subdivisions in Liberty County. That price point, somewhere from 200 to 350
Oh,
Okay,
on half-acre lots. Yes, sir.
okay, thank you.
So you need an approval to, this will be the first step?
This would be the first step. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman.
all right.
Chairman, I make a motion that we are allowed to give this new developing subdivision of 200 water. Is it to Mr. Josh Wheeler?
Yeah, he's the developer. Okay, second?
Oh, he's the developer.
Mr. Chairman, before we go in that, I know you asked him a few questions, but I had something I wanted to ask Marcus.
Yes, sir.
Where the line is at now, Marcus, how far will it be that it has to be reinstalled with the 8-inch line to make sure we got the fire hydrants and all in there?
It's already in. It fronts.
On the main road?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so
Now
all
we'll
you
have to
gotta do
bring
is
it in.
tap and go in?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. I'm not telling the story, am I, Trent? Okay, thank you. Wanted to make sure.
Well, I figured
been a
you
little while
was,
since
you
I've
was
looked at
working with that other, group when y'all put it in, so I just wanna make sure you knew where it was at.
Yes, sir.
No boring under the road or nothing like that.
No, sir, it's on our side.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's it, Mr. Chairman. Just
All right.
clarification. Want to make sure we ain't spending no more money.
Will you second the motion for me?
Yes, sir, I will.
Motion is second. All right. All in favor?
Thank you.
Approved, sir.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, one step.
Thank you for investing in Incorporated Liberty County. Lease agreement, 1881 Hodges Road, Sheriff and Company.
How y'all doing? First of all, thank y'all for having us. And happy belated birthday, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
And, Mr. Chairman, Sheriff, you got one sitting in that corner over there. I was told he had a birthday too.
Happy birthday, happy belated birthday.
Clint did?
Also, our young man Davion Mitchell had a birthday also.
Did
So we'd like to tell him happy belated birthday. I'm gonna have my subject matter expert on this area, Mr. Bill Kirkendall. He's gonna come up here and explain what we're doing and what we need, and then I'll come back behind.
All right, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Hello, sir.
Commissioners. We're before you tonight requesting a lease agreement to be approved for a building located at 1763 West Highway 196 in Hinesville. If you recall, this is the old Mace building, or the drug unit building out on 196 West. The reason for this request is recently we've had to sell off 2 trailers, one of which we were using for the training trailer out at the sheriff's office. The roof was falling in, the walls had mold, and the floor had some soft spots. It was uninhabitable, and we had employees that were going in there and actually being exposed to mold and having some negative allergic reactions to it, so we had to shut it down. Those buildings have been sold. So now we're sitting there with no training location. We're borrowing space right now from the district attorney's office. They've graciously allowed us to use their conference room to hold training classes in. But we have a $64,000 cost-free simulator that we were awarded on a grant. We can't even set it up. We don't have space to set it up. There's a lot of classes that we would like to have in-house, but we simply do not have the location right now to host those classes. We're also seen as a regional venue for training, and we can't host those classes right now because of the lack of adequate training space. So what we've done is we've actually toured several locations in Hinesville, looked at some commercial properties, and this location really, really stood out to us. I was present when the vault at this location was poured, and I know that the vault walls are at least 2 feet thick, one solid pour of concrete with rebar reinforcement, and that would be used as our evidence vault. Right now, we have some issues with our security of our evidence, and it's spread out in several locations. Don't really want to disclose those in an open forum, but they're spread out in several locations across Hinesville, and the security is an issue. We would never pass a state inspection at this point if we were to have a state inspection today. If we move to the new location, that would all be corrected with one move. We're able to negotiate the lease down and save $6,000 extra a year on the lease from what the original request was. And we've presented that lease to the county attorney and to Mr. Brown, and they've taken a look at it, and I believe they tweaked it, and Mr. Brown can make his recommendation from here.
Yeah, this has been the review, and I know Mr. Davis is here, and I know that I've had the opportunity to go out and meet and look at those conditions that exist and don't exist for training out there. So, I mean, our recommendation is that we ask you to approve that lease at this point till they can have some space there.
Okay. Questions?
I just have one question. Bill, I was going to call you chief again. I can still call you chief. That building in the Hodges Road, it's the 196 address. That's not Hodges Road, is it?
No, sir, I'm not sure where this address came from.
Yeah,
It's actually 1763 West.
Right, yeah, the old Mace building next to, used to be Hop and John's
Yes, sir.
convenience store.
Yes, sir.
Now, and I remember that was the Mace building, and you were saying something about a vault. So when that building was built years ago, let's say 15, 20 years ago, it was built with law enforcement in mind.
It was constructed by Mr. Hodges and Kevin with the intention of Mace renting that location. So yes, it was built for a drug unit, to be a drug unit.
And your drug unit now is across the street in the old Hines house?
Yes, sir, it's downtown here.
Okay, the one that Dryden gave us, Mr. Chairman, is that, that's what it is?
And there's pros and cons to that location. Sure, being downtown is great, but we can't make any changes to that location. It has historic value.
Well, you know, and it was a house.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you know, it was a house, and Mr. Dryden gave it to the county, and I think the sheriff department at the time went in there and did what they could, but it's upstairs, and it's the rooms are real small. When Claude was over there, I went over there a few times to visit with him, so it's not conducive to what y'all need.
Very true.
And then, you know, and then we have a building that's mostly constructed for the purpose, I guess is what y'all saying, with the vault and everything for security and whatever else you need.
Yes, sir, and it also has secure parking to the rear. That's motorized gate, so it has secure parking. There's a lot of boxes that this location checks for us.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Brown,
Yes, sir.
how long you think we might be at this lease?
Don't know, sir. I know that, to answer your question, Commissioner Stevens, we've had some initial meetings with an architect to talk about doing some stuff out at the jail location with training facilities and everything that they need, and possibly even some additional stuff that could be used by other jurisdictions. But that's in the planning stages, hopefully something to consider your next splash.
Okay.
And sir, we do have an opt-out option.
Right.
with The lease as well, so we can back out at any time.
Now, I think I saw it, but just for clarification, maintenance on the building, would it be the county or would it be Kevin?
That's Mr. Kevin.
Okay.
Mr. Hodges.
So what we're looking at here, Bill, is probably sometime in the future is gonna have to be property that you're gonna want to have your training as far as your monthly or quarterly qualifying, and then, of course, the people that'll go into the simulators, and everybody's been reading a lot, you know, about the issues out here, you know, with law enforcement and this tragic thing about these people with these mental issues and all of that. So what you're trying to do here now is just get in a spot temporarily until something else can be found.
Yes, sir.
And what do we have out at the existing jail, Joey? How many more, I mean, where the trailers are at out there, of course, we're right up in a residential area and next to a school, so, I mean, the jail at one time was in the woods, and it's not anymore. So I'm just asking, we probably need to be, or whoever needs to be, looking for property and the training and whatever's got to be done on it. I know there's some of that has to go to, you know, wherever, but I just want to make sure that we, you know, looking down the road, I mean, that's what our job is. So.
We have enough area behind the jail going back toward the old airfield and track. That's enough property back there for us to go ahead and essentially put another building back on that side. So we're gonna have to go and look for some. We already have existing spots.
Okay.
And also we have a little bit of land left on the right side of the jail, going around to on the range side. So we have the areas, we just need to get a building constructed and get something that's gonna benefit us for, not just for now, for 20 and 30 years down the road. Because Liberty County is constantly growing on a daily basis.
Where did y'all, when you were in the city police, where did y'all do y'all's training at? Was it built, was that enough room upstairs?
Yes, sir, we had an upstairs training room there at the police department. Also, we could shut down the courtroom and schedule training around court sessions, and we could actually use the courtroom, which is a little bit larger.
I got you.
I talked with Joey, Mr. Chairman, if I may. I talked with Joey, and you know, it seems to be the consensus. Well, not the consensus, but Joey answered some of the questions that I had. And I do know that this is a lease, and you know, you're comparing the lease to the gift that we got from Mr. Dryden. But again, that building is not something that y'all really need at this time. And you know, hopefully we can you know, down the line, maybe on the next round of Spatial or what have you, maybe look at, you know, constructing a building for that purpose. So.
All right, good. Everybody good? Okay. Chair, entertain a motion.
Chairman, I make the motion that we enter into an agreement with Kevin Hodges to lease the building for the Liberty County Sheriff Department.
I'll second it.
Motion and second, we enter an agreement with Mr. Kevin Hodges for the old Mace building, putting back into action.
He built it
Any
with
further discussion?
intention.
All in favor, raise your right hand, please. Those opposed?
Thank
All right, gentlemen.
Just got a few things, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd just like to say thank y'all. I really appreciate this gesture to help out the sheriff's office and also the citizens of Liberty County. We are doing everything that we can right now to make sure that we keep our citizens safe and to make sure that our kids and everybody that come to visit our community remain safe and be safe. But there's a couple of issues that we need to work on that I kind of feel a little strongly about. During our last budget, there was a couple of items that was cut from the sheriff's office budget. And I don't know if y'all looked at it and see exactly what it was. One was the vests for the officers when they go out on their mission. I cannot put them on the road unless they have vests. If I do, that's going to be a liability for us as a sheriff's office.
Talking about bulletproof?
Yeah, the bulletproof vest. And also, through our recent inventory, everything, there were 6 people on the sheriff's office that had vests that was expired. Now, I'm not saying that the vests are not any good, but it's recommended that they be changed every 5 years. And we had 6 people that didn't have a vest that was in regulation. So if something had happened, we can't hold no ownership on the vest organization. The liability would fall on us. So that was one of my concerns about the officer's safety. And also, we took out tasers. That is our only thing that we have besides going to lethal force. Pepper spray, yes, we have that, but tasers are more effective, in my opinion. Those things, small items like that, we need to make sure that when we do look at the budget and before we cut anything, if we're not sure about where it is and what we're looking for, I would be glad to come back and explain to you what this line was for and why we didn't want to get that cut. We're doing a great job over there. I mean, the things that we're doing to implementing, I left you a read-along sheet, and I'm definitely going to put it on our webpage so that people can see the things that we're doing good, the grant money that we're going out there receiving and getting and bringing into the county to save us money, the acquisition of the lease program with the cars, how we're going to save money on the budget, and I think the county is going to go along with that program also. So you're looking at a saving of over 10 years, about $1.9 million. So we're working to make the county better and also to save the county money. So I'd like to say thank y'all again for working with us. It amazes me what we can do together once we communicate. And that communication is open anytime y'all want to come over and visit and look at what we're doing. It's an open book over there. And I appreciate y'all time and thank you so much.
Chair.
Thank you, sure.
Chairman, where are you with the 3 cars, 3 deputies right now? Have you already ordered them?
Right now, I talked to Powell from GOHS, and he said the grant has been approved, but we won't be able to get the money until 1 October. That's when it's allotted for us to receive. But by waiting till 1 October to order our vehicles, we're falling behind because it's such a great demand. We have to get the specific vehicle that the grant is for, and that's for Tahoes. And right now, you know, it's a shortage everywhere for Tahoes. So it would be a good thing if we can get a promissory note or something that we can give to a dealership to let them know, hey, we will get the money, and we can go ahead and just front it right now, and that money will come back to us on October the 1st. If that's something that we can do.
Yes, right. Last time I checked, we hadn't gotten notice that the grant had been awarded to us. maybe that's changed. That's the reason we were holding on the cars.
Right, I just spoke to Powell on Friday, was it Friday? Was that hand across the border at the Florida line? And he told me it was all approved, but the money will not be allocated to us until that day that it was approved for us to get it, and that's on the 1st of
If we can
October.
just get a letter
Something in
saying it's
writing.
been approved, then that's not a problem. That's all we needed was just a letter from
Okay,
the state. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll make sure I get that letter. But, yeah, we're definitely working diligently trying to get that done. And if you look at some of the stats on that sheet I gave you, you can see how hard we have been working since January. And we'll continue to do that. And you can see that there's been an alarming rate of deaths in this county from methamphetamine. In the month of May, we had 5 personnel from Liberty County to die because of overdose of fentanyl. And it only takes 2 milligrams of fentanyl to kill you. And also we have had an alarming rate of domestic violence here lately, and also gun-related issues. That's i.e. people just firing their guns at random, or shootings, or the recent one we just had the other week.
Yeah.
Right here in town, in broad daylight. So that lets you know that something is terribly wrong when you can just brandish a gun in broad daylight, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and have no respect for who you could have hurt, rather than the person that you was trying to hurt. So we definitely have a issue with domestic violence and gun control. So I don't know if the CARES Act money has started flowing in yet to us, but we need to get on to that, because if you look at President Biden did say that money can be used for law enforcement to help offset the cost of hiring more officers for the road, and EMS for the stuff that they've done, and also fire. I can't forget about my fire people. We all one team. So as soon as we can get whatever else is going on, Mr. Commissioners, and
That's on our agenda, but we just got to get down to on the agenda, sir.
okay, well, I appreciate it. I'm here with you. I'm not pushing you or forcing you, but I just want to let you know that we are here. Whatever the county requires, we will be there to help.
It would be a good idea. I told other folks, some other folks are coming before us, so put in writing what your request would be, and we'll just put it in the same consideration pot with everything else we've been asked to do too from the CARES Fund. So just put something in writing.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
And then we'll bring you back so you can give us a more in-depth
Okay.
your report. But this time we're trying to deal with the lease. We got that done.
Got that done. I appreciate that, and thank you all so much for that.
All right, we'll bring you back for the full. Thank you for giving this to us.
Okay.
We appreciate it, because
Thank you.
it's something we have not been privy to, so thank you for providing it to us.
No problem. Anytime you need it, you just let me know.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Emergency
Hey, y'all don't have to
declaration?
leave now here.
Yes, they do.
I mean, y'all come in and get what you want and y'all leave.
Evening, everybody.
No, sir.
I think everyone is aware of the new and significant public health threat posed by the COVID-19 Delta variant. And if you folks want to look at the proposed emergency declaration that's in your packet, if you'll turn to page 2, you'll see that in the entire Coastal Health District, and in particular Liberty County, transmission rates as well as hospitalization rates are an all-time high. And this was, Joey might have more current information, but this was as of the beginning of September. And, you know, Liberty County is not immune from the difficulties that the community in general has experienced because of the Delta variant. I think it was last week which prompted this discussion about the local emergency. The county received word, I think both at the annex and the courthouse, that several of the employees, whether it be of the board or constitutional officers, tested positive for COVID. So it prompted us to think, or at least ready ourselves, be in a position to respond quickly to any increasing threat or effects of the Delta variant. If more employees were to test positive, for example, what the county might do. And so at that time it was discussed that a declaration of local emergency might be needed so at least position the county to respond quickly. It also provides some additional benefits. If you decide you can return to remote meetings as you did in the past, declaring a local emergency will allow that. It also provides some other funding benefits, perhaps, that you wouldn't otherwise be entitled to if a local emergency wasn't declared. But primarily, it's just to position the county to respond quickly. As you folks know, once a local emergency is declared, the chairman has the authority to impose whatever preventative measures or other orders are necessary to help mitigate the public threat. Of course, he does that always in consultation with you folks. But that's what this declaration does. It's very similar to the one you originally enacted, I think back in March of last year. All it does is declare a public emergency. It also ratifies your existing entry policy for county buildings requiring the wearing of face masks and screening procedures. I think if everyone remembers, our original local emergency was consistent with the governor's, and it provided that at what time the state's emergency terminated, our local emergency would also terminate. Well, the governor terminated the public health emergency for the state, I believe it was effective July of this year, but he imposed a new statewide emergency, basically to aid in the recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. And so the state of emergency is currently ongoing, but this is independent of that. Other jurisdictions, counties and cities throughout the state are declaring their own local emergencies, I think for the very reasons I mentioned. Most thus far, I think, have only done it to restrict access to county buildings, perhaps modify county services. But again, if the consequences of the Delta variant become more severe, you folks will be in a position to respond quickly if you choose to do so. The CDC also recommends that elected officials encourage their citizens, even those who've been inoculated or received the COVID vaccine, to wear face masks in indoor public spaces. And CDC also encourages local government officials to encourage citizens to explore the necessity of a COVID-19 vaccine as well. And that's what your order does. It encourages everyone, does not require, but encourages everyone to wear face masks in indoor public spaces, and encourages citizens to consult with their private physician or other healthcare provider and investigate if they're an appropriate candidate for the COVID-19 vaccination. Doesn't mandate, doesn't require, but simply encourages. And that's the gist of the local declaration. I'll be happy to answer any questions. But again, it's very similar to the one you adopted back in March of 2020.
Any questions for Mr. Davis?
The numbers, Mr. Chairman, that we're looking here, of course, the hospitalizations and the transmission index, how frequent can you get those, or?
Daily.
Daily?
Yes, sir.
So that's something that you're gonna have somebody monitor that somebody's keeping up with that?
Yes, sir. It's what we do is just go to the Coastal Health website. They show several graphs there, and they update them at 3 o'clock every day, except on weekends.
We're getting where we hate to go look.
Yeah.
And of course, most of the things the board can do will affect county operations only. Whether you want to restrict county services or close access to public buildings, things of that kind. I think that your ability to affect or to mandate requirements for the population generally, including private businesses, is probably still limited. There's some disagreement about that, but I think it probably is very limited. So any emergency orders that you implement in the future probably will be specific to county services and county business. But you can always encourage what you're doing in this order as well.
Have we done this already? I know you got your picture down there on the sign to get a shot, but
That was through
have we encouraged our employees going to be?
yeah.
We have verbally, or is it just
Verbally.
Really?
Verbally, we have, yes, sir.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
between the two of you all, I hear what Kelly is saying, but also, what do we have in place? Let's say our employee gets contracts the the COVID-19, how are they looked at? Is there any incentive to help them want to go get the vaccination? What kind of incentive are there to give them a little stipend if they get sick the first time? I mean, if I'm saying it correctly.
Well, so you had the original CARES Act that came out. Actually, it was the Rescue America that came out, but it had a stipulation in there that the federal government put in that required employers to, under certain conditions, pay an employee for up to 2 weeks for COVID-related illness, and that was for themselves or a family member, and that expired in December. And so that is not there for any employee except those of the federal government now that have that. To answer your question, most of our folks were able to take annual leave and sick leave, and I'd be glad to show you the flow chart that we developed that we gave out to employees and department heads about how employees, if they test positive, what they have to follow. And then the CDC is constantly redoing their guidelines, and so there's a different pattern for those that have been vaccinated versus non-vaccinated and the wait times that they have to stay out. As far as the incentives go, that was hopefully one thing that we maybe could talk about with some of the ARPA money. To be able to just give county dollars would be a gratuity, just to give county general fund dollars out. So I'm hoping that's something that we can address with the ARPA is an encouragement for those to
Because
go.
I heard what you just said. For some of those, they can take leave, but if they, let's say you've only been here 3 months, 4 months, and something happens, those persons, they're out there without anything, you know.
Yes, sir, they are.
And if they're putting themselves in harm's way to help keep these offices open, then at least if we could look at doing something for them, we need to do so.
Well, I think they need to get they need to get vaccinated.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
See, this time last year, we didn't have the vaccine,
Right.
but we got it today.
Yeah.
And, someone, and just Gary Gilder talking, someone that tests positive and hadn't been vaccinated.
Right, yeah.
You
You can put a little guideline in it, you know.
I
And
mean, we got that option.
Yeah.
We got that option now to go get vaccinated, free of charge.
Yeah.
That's there. We didn't have that this time last year. But one thing.
And I think declaring the local state of emergency will help with that as well. It gives you, I think, additional authority to make those sorts of decisions if you want to provide incentives to your employees to get vaccinated. Whatever it is, the declaration of a local state of emergency, I think, will give the Board of Commissioners additional authority that you might not otherwise have under Georgia law.
I'm not sure how deep we're going to get, but that's part of item J tonight on the agenda. So if we can just hold on to your ideas, But let's do the.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. But we didn't, and I don't think Commissioner Jones was here at the time. It was last year, or maybe the latter part of last year, or sometime last year. We talked about, and we never adopted the mask, wearing the mask in the unincorporated area of the county. So that's still not something that's not in here, is it?
No, sir, and there's, I mentioned the governor's original public health state of emergency was terminated, and this is a new state of emergency, and it's not addressed in that, but I think most of the people, most of the county attorneys you talk to, they'll probably say that the restrictions are probably the same that existed under the original order.
Okay.
And that your ability to impose mask mandates outside of county buildings and county personnel is probably limited. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Recommend, whatever. All right, any other questions? All right.
Okay. You need a motion?
Yes, sir.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Second.
Motion is second. We approve the emergency declaration with COVID-19 as discussed. All in favor? All right, sir. We have it on hand if we need it.
Thank you, folks.
Agreement for services, Hinesville Official Association.
Yes, sir. This is a consideration of a renewal with this group that handles recreation events for us. So it is just an annual renewal. In the back, you'll see basically the schedule that's laid out, that's recommended by Mr. Martin and by the rec board for approval.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Brown on that? And we're just renewing it. Chair, enter that motion then.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the agreement for services.
Okay. Second to the motion?
Second.
Motion is second, we approve the agreement services, Hineville Fish Association. All in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? All right.
I don't know why anybody would want to go up there and referee some of them things.
Putting their life on the line, eh?
We're having league play, Mr. Brown?
We are not. And that was a change that was related to football in case it's able to crank back up. No, sir, we're not right now.
Okay.
Alcoholic beverage license, Wayne Jones, Fallon Food Mart.
Yes, sir, there's already at 351 Isaac Stevens Road, this, the old Leroy Cofer Highway location, already has been serving alcohol there, just a new owner for that location. Sheriff's Department recommend approval based on the check they have to perform there, as did Planning and Zoning.
Okay. And meets their approval.
Yeah, I make a motion that we allow the alcohol beverage license for Wayne Jones, Pal and Food Mart.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion is second, we approve the alcohol beverage license as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise their right hands. All right, the license is approved. Date funds request, Fraser Counseling Center.
Yes, sir. Before you have a request for $3,000 from the Fraser Center. The amount that's allocated in the fund right now for disbursement is there. In fact, that balance is $97.85. Your policy says that you will not award any more than $5,000 to any one entity in any one given year. And this would be the second year that Fraser's requested $3. They have produced the reports that they're required to produce for last year, and so recommendation is for approval.
I think we all are familiar with, most of us are familiar with Fraser Center. Mr. Jones, they have been a previous applicant for these funds.
How many more applicants do you have, Joey?
These are the only ones that applied.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, then if we got 3,000, let's give them 3,500.
I'm not opposed.
You can give them, you certainly give them up to 5.
Well,
35's.
I think they're showing some restraints, but I think that they have done a good service in the community, and I'd like to make the motion, we just scratch that out and give them 3,500.
I'll second that.
All right, 3,500 it is.
Chairman, don't we have like a committee to review these?
Myself and Connie and,
Okay.
are you the other one?
No, I don't think I was on that. I mean, this is not the one that swaps back and forth. Yeah.
No.
This is just a set committee.
Yourself and Commissioner Thrift.
One other one, though.
I was,
And one other one that Ms. Audrey sent it out to.
yeah.
Okay.
I'll double check.
But do we, and how many right now do you know of? We've got the Fraser Center. We used to have Helen's Haven.
Yeah, they've applied. What's it,
It was 3 of them.
longtime Liberty County family, what's his name?
Tri-County? Tri-County Protected?
Yeah.
Our children.
Right.
Okay.
But
That
recently,
was Papa Dotton.
but you know, you gotta meet the criteria, so that may be part
Right,
of it.
I understand that.
Yeah, I
I
understand.
knew there was,
There's more than just, right.
Yes.
The Fraser's been consistent. Okay. All right, and I'm trying to save time, so, but in the essence of time, Mr. Bryant, sometime you will indoctrinate this gentleman on how those funds are accumulated, so you know the background of that. Give you a little,
have we got a motion in a
all
second?
all in favor? Thank you, sir. All right. Retiree COLA.
Yes, sir. We got a request, actually, from a retiree. It was at the end of July. So we reached out to ACCG to talk to them about some pension modeling to see what it would cost to give the current retirees a COLA. And they subsequently came back to us. Mr. You and I had a conversation. They actually ran a couple of different options. This is one-time COLA. It would be a continuing COLA, but there's nothing that is automatic at this point in your policy or in your plan. But we had a model, a 2.5% COLA and a 3%. The 3% COLA would only increase the county contribution level by $6,900 a year to do that. I mean, our recommendation is that you consider it. We look back to try to figure out, you know, when the commission last tried to do an adjustment, and I couldn't find any, documentation as to, I know that it's been done once, but it was definitely a long time ago.
I know there's been some,
Just for a little bit of conversation, I got a letter today from Social Security, and I'm sure you probably got one too, or it's coming, Mr. Chairman. I know Mr. Stevens has probably already read his, but they said that they were going up on, or taking out more money for you know, Medicare, Medicaid. So what you thought you was getting is all gonna go toward
Right.
paying for stuff, so,
Joe, this is a one-time
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It would return each year, but you know what I'm saying, it's not the bonus type anything, it's just,
Okay.
yes, sir, it would be a 3% increase in their check.
Now, commissioners, let's see, Joe, did you make this, you did make it a voting item. I know, catching up on the email, this kind of what this has been about, you know, we have some people who, how many people in that pool about, I know it's not a lot, it's not a big, large pool of people. They've been inquiring, you know, about
I thought about that number a second ago, and I'm sorry I didn't look it up.
for their retirement pay. And we had not done that, nor has it been our policy, that's what Joe is saying. But he did the research, and we can, at $6,900 a year, make a one-time COLA adjustment for our retirees. I forgot to, Kim, you forgot how many is?
I want to say it's over 70, but
Yeah. That's what this would do,
Okay.
because there've been some requests for it. So it's at the commissioner's discretion.
well, is this a item to be voted on, Joey, or do we need to put it in?
No, sir, I mean, you can. I mean, basically, we would just increase our pension contribution.
By that amount a year.
Do you have to advertise anything, or just something that we can just do
No,
right
sir,
here?
you can,
Do it right here?
do it.
You're here.
I'm
I'm comfortable
fine
with
with
it.
it.
I'm comfortable with it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we go along with what's been presented here this evening.
Okay.
I would like to say, though, that I know that the conversations that we've heard, that we've not looked at it, and I don't know whose fault it is, but let's try to put that on a 5-year look at if we have to. And then if we see something change during the year, then we want to add some more contribution, let's do that. But they're retirees, you can look at it two ways. They're not working here anymore, but there's times when they can be helpful to not just us, but other citizens, and we want to make sure that we've got the camaraderie that's still there and friendship.
That's his motion. Will somebody second it?
Second.
Which is second, we approve the recommendation from staff, 3% COLA for our retirees. Joe, when will that become effective?
I will have to check, Mr. Chairman. I look at the timing of when those checks go out. I'd hate to
understand.
guess. I would want to say it would at least take a month to get it into place.
All right.
Would be a subsequent month, but I'll definitely come back to you and
I
let
know
you know
it's
for
coming.
sure.
All in favor? Those
Yeah,
opposed?
and Joe, if you see, Mr. Charles Schuman, I mean, you know, I worked down there, then after I left, my brother Ricky worked down there, but he always liked Ricky better, but tell him I'm the one that's giving it. I'm the one that just voted to give him, I'm the one that,
Garrett Gillett?
I'm the one that voted to give him a raise.
He's probably sitting right there watching you
I
right
hope,
now.
I hope he is. Oh, Mr. Schuman, did you get that? Okay.
He has no shame. Board of Commissioners redistricting process. I see there's a slide up on the screen, so.
I may actually let Clint, if you don't, I'll tell you what, I'll get you there. This is a presentation that was done by, obviously, Gina Wright, who's the director of reapportionment, the Georgia General Assembly. You're familiar a little bit with that process. We've talked a little bit about it. I made you a copy of her whole presentation. We definitely, for the sake of time, won't go through that because it just talks about a lot of history in there. What I do want to do is go forward to the one that deals just with commission districts. And this is a process for local governments that we'll be following. Mr. Jimmy McDonald, who y'all are familiar with, you may remember Jimmy used to run the Office of Reapportionment up there. So we're lucky to have him local now. He has actually agreed to help us in this process, to help y'all in this process with your cohorts at the Board of Education. And basically, just a quick overview here. I won't read these slides to you, but one significant note, Senate Bill 177 that was approved in 2019 changed the process just a little bit, and it organized the steps. We'll talk about that. Here it is. You have to basically request a legislator to sponsor you. That's not really a problem. I would think that'd be Representative Williams that would do that. Does not have to be. Can be any senator or representative. And it just says here that, if you have any other requirements, you have to check that. But basically, they agree to do it. That legislator then notifies reapportionment office, and you run an ad that basically, even before the legislative process starts, you can go ahead and notify the public of certain things that you're doing in the redistricting efforts. That's really the only significance of Senate Bill 177. Basically, you have choices about how you want to work on your maps, whether you want to do those locally or whether you want reapportionment office to do that. We talked with the chief elected officials, actually the chairman of the school board and Chairman Lovett were there, Mr. McDonald was on the line. It's recommended that we go ahead and do that locally. If you go through the reapportionment office, you basically have to go up there, schedule a meeting with them. They're going to pull up the district information for you, and you sit there. They give you about an hour, maybe hour and a half block of time, and that's about all the time you have to work on it. Additionally, they're going to take the first crack at the map. Now, definitely won't downplay their abilities, except that they don't, possibly have the input or the insight that y'all have in your jurisdictions. So what's been recommended is that we do that locally, which is what we did last time. Over at GIS, Mr. Stanley and Whitney have already downloaded a program that, in fact, the reapportionment office uses called Maptitude. That program will allow that block census data to be input into each district, and then it allows you and your partners to actually manipulate that data by moving streets or moving lines on the map. You'll be able to do the same work locally and spend what time you want to do it rather than having to let reapportionment do it in Atlanta under a line like that. So it's going to be better to do it basically here. This is basically what we're talking about. You'll draw the desired map, and then you'll submit your map to the Office of Reapportionment. If you read the background data, basically what you're after is one person, one vote. So your districts need to be balanced as much as possible. And not to say that one district has to have the same number of people in it that the other one does, but you can't have one district of an exorbitant amount of people in it and one with a lesser amount of people in it. So you've got to come to some balancing. And if many of y'all remember, if you were here last time, we actually came into the room here and we used Maptitude, and there were some areas that you said, look, first of all, Commissioner Walden, you got to give up about 400 people out of your district, and it's got to be absorbed by a district around you. We want y'all to communicate and tell us where you want to see that line. The line gets moved, it does a recount automatically, and it can tell you how balanced you are. That differential in the balance, by the way, has got to be inside a 2% sector. So it's got to be pretty close from a balancing standpoint on the offset. So we'll be able to do that. You'll be able to do that in here. Basically, it's then submitted to reapportionment. Reapportionment can authorize adjustments or ask you to make other adjustments, or they approve it. But in the end, they have to approve it before it goes forward to the legislature. And then, of course, after the certification by reapportionment, you will have basically some public hearings that you have to run to adopt the new maps. This is kind of that process in a grid for you to take away for tonight. It's basically pretty simple. We'll plan on some local work sessions. So again, notification's got to be sent to the legislatures of the desire to enact the map. The legislation is not drafted until it's requested by the legislature. And then members of the General Assembly do have the ability to draft their own versions of the map. Generally doesn't happen, but she just wanted everybody to be aware. Then the maps are basically, they go to the General Assembly. They'll have a process in January when they crank up that they'll start approving these maps and then send those to the governor for his signature. Very, very tight time frame when you think about it. Between now, and we've set out a calendar for this that I'll send to you, but between now and really the first part of December, we need to go ahead and start to have meetings really in earnest in the month of November with you and the school board, probably right here in this room. Jimmy's volunteered to come in and sit and kind of help with that. Whitney will be here with GIS, with Maptitude, and y'all will work as a team to try to redraw that line and rebalance it, okay? And that won't be obviously the only session that we'll have. What we're in right now, in fact, Hunter has already gone, but Hunter Key from CRC is going to try to help me make some calls tomorrow. We haven't officially gotten what's called the block data files. And you remember that the census counts are done just like play blocks on a map. So many people are in one block, so many people in another block. These blocks make up District 6, these blocks make up District 1, and it's the census data has not been released by block yet. It's been released in total, but it hadn't been released in the blocks. We really need the block data file in order to be able to sit down and have these meetings with y'all. What I've done, though, is I've got a set of maps for y'all tonight of each of your districts. You probably got one, but Whitney was nice enough and Clint to get me another one. Please take those maps. You know where some growth has occurred in your area, and while we're waiting on the block file data to come, take a look and see that if you had to adjust, where you might want to adjust. Tell us what's important to you so that we know ahead of time. We're going to be having some kickoff meetings in September that we want to sit down and talk with you about that so that we don't actually have to, hopefully, we'll tie up as long as you want to tie up in the room, but we want to know what's important going forward. And so then we'll go ahead once we see what's out of balance and try to tweak them some before you ever come in. And then, of course, you can move them around. But that's how that redistricting process will work. Again, the timeline's real short because we need to have everything approved and voted on by December so we can get it to the legislature in January so that they can approve it whatever time they're going to take. And I think they'll come out pretty quickly because then the voter election office has got to take a look at what voter cards needs to be changed, if any, and get those notifications out before qualifying comes in April. Last part of March, first part of April. So this year, because of the COVID and because of the census delay, it's made it a very tight process for doing it. So just kind of, be glad to answer any questions. Jimmy's there to answer questions for you. Just look for some meetings to spin up. Probably we're being told middle or last part of September is when that block data will come out. But I do want to give you those maps tonight. Take them with you, draw them, whatever you want to do with them, and then bring them back when we meet. But the meetings in earnest will be in November.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Joey, my district, was kind of gerrymandered, and so if you move the lines, do you still keep that the gerrymandering in place? Because I live in Hinesville, and I go through and pick up Waltherville, and I get Homestown from going down Long Reach Road, and on the map, it's continuous. But it was kind of, from my understanding, it was kind of drawn as to, because years ago, District 1 was a majority black district. And then there was another one that was created. It's called the Hinesville District, but it does include Waltherville. It includes the historical African-American part of Hinesville, where I was born and raised, and it goes through, and then it comes in Homestown through the back. But if you get those block numbers that you're talking about, and if you're not conscious of trying to keep that majority district, you may lose that, because right around the corner where I live, where Justin used to live, that it would make more sense if all of that was mine. But if I get all of that, then I may have to. It may not be that gerrymandered district. So I don't know if that's something that's going to be considered.
You brought up a couple good things that I had forgotten to mention. So Justice Department clearance is not needed anymore.
Okay.
That was one other big change. The Senate billed it and everything to do with that, but that was one big change. You don't have to have pre-clearance by justice anymore. However, when we talked about that, since Liberty County has traditionally, and other counties have traditionally had a large one exceptional minority district, that will probably be the goal again as reapportionment looks. So I'd say we, but I think in talking with Jimmy, the goal would not to be to dilute a primary minority district again, would be still to have one. That being said, the census lines are really supposed to follow natural boundaries, roads. They can follow waterways. Do they always do that? They're supposed to. In fact, if you look at the local legislation that has to get passed when this is done, it is a degree by degree point on a survey that has to be entered into the district data. So yeah, if you, depending on the balancing in your district, I mean, it's certainly would be great, and the term gerrymandering is a good one to see how they carve out, even at the state level, some of those thin districts that run around and catch things. It can be done, and in some cases has to be done for that balancing to happen in the districts. Won't know till we get that. I'm very anxious to see what districts grew by what amount in the block data file.
Well, I know the district that Commissioner Thrift has, just by the lay of the land, Griffin Park would be in that district. And that's 600 houses, 2,500 people just in that subdivision alone.
And you know, when you squeeze a bubble on one side, the other moves.
And I guess in either, I guess maybe Eddie's district, since the last time this was done, we got Oak Crest in Hinesville. I mean, that's another 500 or 600 houses, and I don't know if that's some of
That would be,
Commissioner Jones.
yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to remember when you was talking about redistricting, how long has it been?
It would have been in 2010.
Yeah.
Last part of 2010, 2011.
I remember. I think I was in District 5 in Mr. Harold Wood's school board. You know, we got the same district, but he and I agreed, and you know, and we made some move, but it wasn't that much growth in Liberty County then, like it's been in the last 10 or 11 years.
Well, here, the disappointment there too, and I want to mention this to you because even though we haven't got the block data, we've gotten the conglomerate data, and it actually shows only a 2.8% increase in the growth from 63,453 in 2010 to 65,256. And we think that data is wrong.
Yeah.
When we look at the area of Fort Stewart, I think in looking at that count's actually right. I think it's others that didn't get picked up. As a group, you will be talking with others about what's called the Census Count Question Resolution Program, challenging the census. Basically on that data. It's not real easy to do. In fact, it's a 9-step process you have to go through. I don't mean work-wise is hard. I mean that them accepting a challenge, it doesn't happen often. And it's basically got to be based on either a boundary area, a geocoding area of how something was coded, or coverage areas. And so trying to go out there and basically say, you counted it wrong, here's a number of housing units that we show versus what you show, doesn't do it. There's other things that have to be involved. It's a process you walk through, but that's something that basically we'll have to go through. In the end, it could mean a small modification to the census. The sad thing is, we've talked about all you're fixing to do on the district and all, won't be able to take that in consideration. This process won't open until January. And it's that way after every census. The resolution program, you can't open your challenge until like January
Sure.
of 22.
Let's say, down in District 1, what was the last day of the census count? Just roughly, close. Let's say July. I'm just gonna use July.
Not far.
But since
March?
July, construction has been booming in an area after the census count closed. How do you look at that?
So, good question. So the census does intermediate counts, and those would be picked up in the intermediate count, which also gets published to the census page. They do census updates every year, as a matter of fact. So they take the data for housing starts and everything, and they update that file.
But you won't change your district lines though, based on,
No, sir, it will not affect your district lines, but as far as what you see on the census, what others see on the census for growth, it would be reflective.
and this is highly important, y'all. Well, two things come to mind. Number one, you all who have been around in Commissioner General, you have to work with your school board commissioner who serves your district. And same for the rest of the commissioners, So that's a collaboration you have to do. Secondly, when it comes to economic development, I've been in conversation with some of our real estate developers as recent as last week. There are people who are looking at our community who are looking for those numbers to be what we thought they were going to be before they will bring developments here. So that really plays a part when it comes to what comes to Liberty County. So while George says we may not be able to appeal that until January, we need to do whatever we can to appeal that, because we're losing development because the numbers they thought were going to be in the census.
Yeah, I saw, and I don't know if that's the same numbers Joy just mentioned, but I went online and that 2 point whatever percent. I mean that just don't seem nowhere near. I mean it's 5 in Griffin Park,
Yeah.
and then you got behind old Bruton Parker, and what's gonna happen down there by Mac Reed off of in Flemington down off of 84 and back out in there. That's just gonna be.
We just approved 123 lots tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, that was, Mr. Chairman, let me ask you a question. And you brought up working with the school board, and of course, some of us can remember when there was just a few commissioners, and now we've got 6 and a chairman. I honestly believe, and especially Commissioner Stevens is talking about, that the area from South Newport all the way to the Jericho River on that side of the interstate, I mean, is going to grow until, I mean, he'll wear a vehicle out, because me and Gary's down there helping him every Friday. But
Right, y'all try.
I'm just saying that when do we look at, hey, there's so much that 7 people can do, and you have to add another person.
You have to.
I mean, I don't advocate going out there and just doing it unless, I mean, this government was, taxation with representation, and that's what we need to consider. So I just want to make sure that drawing a bigger line around more people, this is a part-time job, but you're working on it, all the time. So I'm just, I'm saying, when we do this, let's make sure that, like Commissioner Gillard said, I mean, I don't know how he gets from Melvin Lane all the way back through without having to walk through the woods.
I go down 84 and make a right.
I know. But when you go down 84, on the right-hand side of the road, there's District 1.
District
Well,
1.
and the part about that is everyone sees hometown as a community, but the road splits mine from Marion's. I mean, Marion got the left-hand side going from 84 down. He has
Right.
everything on that side. But, you know, it's Homestown is the community, and the majority of people around the loop and going straight through the Long Reach Road, what's Marion, 15 houses probably, if that many.
I'll give about 20.
When you come back up to Spencer Golden,
Yeah, well, that was mine, but you know.
right, that's what I'm saying. See, there's a,
But you have the opportunity to do those kind of things
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
sit down with the maps.
It'll be a good
You
exercise.
can clean it up
you
as
know.
much as you can.
Yeah, we'll work it out.
But, yeah, anything you got in Homestown that's paved, I'll go ahead and
Yeah.
take it.
All right.
Yeah.
Trying to get us to the good stuff. All right, there'll be some workshops. We'll sit down with our school board partners and Mr. Jones, get ready.
Yeah.
Baptized by fire. You hit the right time.
It's gonna be a challenge.
We'll be working though, close that, we'll be working with y'all's schedules, figure out when it is best for y'all to meet and sit down. With probably Jimmy and myself and Whitney.
But Commissioner Walden's right. That's when you get to clean up some lines if you want to.
Yeah.
As much as you can. All right.
I'm gonna jump real quick, and this is kind of a lead in for our ARPA. So the state actually got some state relief dollars, really from the same federal appropriation that the American Rescue Plan Act dollars came to the counties and cities from. What Georgia did, and it is the exact same requirements, the exact same federal register of things that the state has to comply with reporting and guidelines and what you can use the money for. The state basically created 3 buckets of money, and I will not go through all of these slides again. This is actually OPB that did that, but they basically created 3 areas. These are very similar to the areas that were created for the ARPA funds, but this is the amount of money that they appropriated for each area for these committees to review. This process involves application of a grant submission to one of these areas, online grant portal, and then basically they are screened by Office of Planning and Budget at the state level for compliance to make sure they meet the act requirements for submission. And then they're handed to one of these committees. The committees are formed of public and private people. Some state division heads are in there, and they will basically then go through and score those grants. And in fact, in here, they'll score those grants, and in here I've got the table of how they score those grants. I won't go through all that for you tonight, but let me just say this as a takeaway. What we want to try to do, if it's okay, is apply for some water sewer money to extend the rest of your water line that didn't get done down Lewis Fraser Road. There's actually about 1,170 residents that live in that area down there. We had talked previously about trying to get a CDBG block grant to do that project, which is non-guaranteed. I'm not going to say this money's guaranteed, but I've already finished the grant application because they actually had a deadline of 2 weeks ago in there, and they decided to extend it. But in doing that, we check all the right boxes. I mean, I think we got a great application for this money. It still would not be too late, though, if this failed, to be able to go out for a CDBG. The CDBG is more of a target area. You have to prove low to moderate income, which I think that would qualify in that area too. But I just feel real good about trying to go for these dollars. Mr. Mosley and I talked about where we could get the most bang for the buck. You've got locally, you've got about $50,000 sitting in the water sewer fund, which would be the money you would use to match a block grant. You would not have to use that money for this purpose if you didn't want to. This would be somewhere you could pull in your ARPA money for a match to match this state grant to get this federal money. And that mix would be ARPA local at 246,000, and then 561,000 of these state dollars. And just really what I want to ask, and you can take this overview away with you, is it okay to submit an application for that?
This is for the water and.
This would be for that water, to finish Lewis Fraser Road water.
Okay. Has you ever noted that both of them, you could get both grants at the same time? That's unusual, isn't it, for water and sewer? Well, actually, we don't have sewer, no,
We don't,
in the
no,
county.
we don't have it.
So it would be just water.
Right. I will tell you that Mr. Long helped me, I had to have some help with the engineering numbers associated with this. Matthew Barrow had done this before and turned those files over to us. One thing that came up, and you remember this, it was kind of an afterthought that I reached out to Mr. Long, was to make sure that in that budget, we had the connection money in there. Because you remember when we did the water system the first time, part of our block grant covered running that extension to the homes and doing the hookup. Those people, if you don't, those people will not be able to afford to run those service lines.
Right.
And so we've been sure that in this budget proposed for the project, which is $935,000, that basically we're able to run that and also get the water lines put in to do that. I would not push anything out until I sent you a full narrative on it. It's a little hard to print out because it's an online grant, but I can give you the narratives that are in there. You'll get this, amount of customers. You'll see our budget. I can get that on out there to you, but I just wanted to know that they've extended it until the end of September. I can actually just get you that out, and we can, you can decide in the next meeting if you want to, whether we want to go forward with a submission. But I wanted to give you just a brief overview of that. The water and sewer is pretty clear. The broadband, pretty clear. They've set guidelines on that broadband pot of money as far as what it can be used for, and it's got to have so much speed per millisecond on the delivery rate.
And in certain areas.
And only in certain areas.
Right.
Yes, sir, that's right. And the other is what they've termed negative economic impact, thank you, on there. You've really got to be able to show, to use that money for industries or projects that suffered economic decline during the COVID pandemic to do that. You'll see when we go through the ARPA presentation, because again, it's pretty much like this, that you can give money out to impacted businesses, impacted industries, but they have to prove on a balance sheet where they have suffered decline during that period of time. There's a strict reporting standard there. The way that the state wants this money to be given out to industries is not necessarily giving it to D.S. Smith or giving it to industry specific. They really want it giving it out to an industry and trade association, who would then take those applications, send them in, and then the trade association would disperse that money. It could be given to Chamber of Commerce's that suffered. But the way they want that done, much like ARPA dictates, is they'd rather you get together with a tourism bureau that handled a region and let that region handle grants out to everybody that was affected. So it's quirky. There's a lot of reporting guidelines in there as far as what you'll see in ARPA. That being said, though, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I know that, and Mr. Chairman, you mentioned this to me, the Interstate Road project, what I'll call, it's still called Interstate Road, I guess, but the road leading to D.S. Smith's in such bad shape. You may remember that you appropriated in your T-Splosh money half of what was required to do that project at about $1.5 million, and it was hoped that D.S. Smith would be able to come forward and help. I reached out to Mr. Standard down there, Duran Standard, and some of the management down there, and they've given me some narratives basically on what they have spent fighting the COVID epidemic.
Everybody else has too.
Yep, things that they've had to do. But that was a way that you can get some of these state dollars on an infrastructure project to do that. Again, I don't know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Put together a little application for that. I don't feel that the weight of that application is near as good as the water, and they wouldn't compete. It's going to a different infrastructure committee. But it could be the way to see if the state might help the county commission with the extra money that's needed for that road. Actually help the county commission in the city of Riceboro, I guess, but help the industry, basically.
Mr. Brown, back up now. I got just a little confused. You're talking about two different pot of money, right?
First, I'm talking about a pot of money that belongs to the commission that's not this money.
So is that the one called the local?
That one is called the American Rescue Plan Act, and it's money that's given to local governments, cities and counties, and tribal jurisdictions.
Okay.
And then the state has their own pot of money that it's administering projects with.
Okay.
That's the money that we're talking about going to for the water and possibly for a road, some help on the road, because it serves an industry. Otherwise, I don't even think we would be able to reach out for that road project. Roads are not something that you can just fund out of American Rescue Plan money.
Right, but this
and you'll-
local, the local ARP funds, you can do that.
Really not supposed to, unless you can show that, unless you can positively show that there was an economic decline in that. I mean, when you start to put your list together, I'm not sure you're gonna have money. You can't just do roads with it. It would have to be a road that served an industry.
So actually, right now, if you're looking at this pot of money that you're talking about now, if you had to put your priority, it first would be water,
In the water category,
then broadband.
if we had broadband. Well, there's three separate pots, so you could have number one priorities in each pot.
Okay,
But the other thing is that you've got to have projects that are project ready.
right.
And we talked about being prepared. So you're far enough along, definitely with your water,
Right.
that we can put that on out. There's a few things we'd have to do, but if we're awarded, we'd update the plans and basically be ready to go on that.
Okay.
To put that out to bid. The Interstate Road project, not far, there's no final plans been developed on it, but there's a significant amount of work that's been done on it just to do the final plans and get those out. You know, that it would be project ready to let within a year's time, certainly within, several months.
Well, could drainage play into this? Can't. I guess you know why I'm asking that, 'cause we got some major issues in the county with drainage. That's why I'm asking that question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, you've got to have a match for these funds at the state level, and the match is a scoring thing, so the more match, the better. Your $1.5 million is sitting out there as a 50-50 match. That's as strong as it gets on a road project. Your match to the water is about a 40% match, which I think is still good. The water project, it's a natural in there.
Okay.
So I don't think the match amount's going to hurt you, that you're not doing a 50-50 in there. But I personally, on the infrastructure project for negative economic impact, if you're fortunate enough you got some money allocated already, if you're fortunate enough to get the other half you need, then I think you'd come out very well on that project.
Well, would you not try to bring the water back toward, I mean, if you go one way, which is already down in there, from Leroy Cofer Road all the way back and come under the railroad, all of those commercial businesses, and then behind the Lakes subdivision, we know that it's nothing but timberland it's already been before us at one time and laid out for homes. I don't know, we've got both areas to try to look at.
That's a great point. So we hadn't done any studies on that. We hadn't done any engineering on that. You could count the people that are there, and I think it'd be pretty easy to run an estimate on what it would take to come under the CSX and serve those customers, that is your water service delivery area.
It would be all the way to the city limits of Flemington.
It's about Liberty High right there.
That's right, to Liberty High.
Mr. Brown, Joey, Chairman,
Fire protection.
Chairman.
Yes, sir. I hear you.
I had a question that was posed to me today about the water system that we got. And going through Robertson Street, can there be any changes made to that for fire protection through there?
So,
Although that's the city of Midway and it's got that water overlay district
yes,
in there, can it be any changes to that?
not without the city agreeing, or either you taking it to mediation at the state level to change your service delivery area. The city would need to agree to give up that area in the service delivery strategy that's adopted. And that's why the water district for the city of Hinesville actually runs all the way out to the high school.
Right. But I mean, I'm trying to look at
Yeah.
where you've got available land that's already coming toward the railroad track.
That's right.
I mean, whichever way you feel like we got the most bang for the buck,
Well, we could try. I mean, I don't know, Trent and I get together and look and see, because we've got a little bit of time. Updating some numbers would, I mean,
well,
yeah, we need to, it'd be good to come on that side.
It would,
I thought
if
that
we
the-
had it from the track back toward Liberty, that would be great.
if you had
They're going under the tracks.
the thing that Paul Simonton, I mean, he's the one that, he engineered that whole thing, didn't he, for the project?
He did.
And I know he came in here and told us where all the lines was at and what sizes they were. They're all out there on that, in that folder, that packet that he gave us.
He didn't do anything, Matthew didn't do anything on this side of the tracks.
No.
I know that, but I'm just saying, in the other line areas, we already know, like what size main there is,
Right.
if it's an 8 or if it's a 10.
Right.
That's out there.
Yes,
We
sir.
know what's going into Homestown.
Right.
It's
Yep.
10, and then it drops to an 8.
Yep.
But I
That's what
thought
Mike,
we had talked about that at one time, because I know the discussion was, if something were to happen, how far would we have to be to the city of Hinesville to say, hey, we've lost something here, we need 48 hours worth of water.
well,
And
you did, and what ended up happening too, though, was that this connection down in, that we're talking about doing Lewis Fraser, would put you in a situation that if Riceboro would allow it, you could
Right.
tie into
Right,
their
you
system.
could tie in.
You would loop with their system.
Right.
right, well, that's what I'm saying, go both ways with it. I mean, actually, Riceboro's getting theirs from McIntosh County right now. So, I mean, it's, wherever we're at, because the whole Liberty County right now, from what I'm understanding, is pretty much knuckled down, especially the city of Hinesville.
It is. So what we can do is take a look then at what it would take to bring that on this side of the tracks too, budgetarily wise and cost wise and line wise. And then it may mean that you may want to, it'll change your ARPA numbers for the money you need to match to be strong. We'll need to up that, obviously some, but we can certainly, I mean, that would, yeah. And again, we would count the current customers there, is really all you'd be able to count to do that, since there's nothing else. There's been stuff talked about, but there's not anything approved on the books for subdivisions, but we can certainly get those counts. That's easy.
So if it goes down Lewis Fraser now, Commissioner Stevens, does it go all the way to the corner and come down Scribbin Fork, or does it turn there and go
Scribbin Fork is already covered.
all right, so.
Okay, so just before you get to John, you start off by let's say John Roberts' house. You know where the bricklayer stay
Yeah.
at? Bricklayer stay at, take it all the way out to Barrington Ferry. That will cover everything right there on Salters Road and Salters Farm Road. And there's another road down there, I think there's about 6 or 7 houses up in that road.
That's on the right, that's.
On the right-hand
River Road.
side, right, So you're probably looking at about 40 or 45 houses in that distance.
Yeah, well, I don't know what's at the lakes and what's on Bright Lakes, but on either side of the road, you'd have a lot of commercial customers, so.
It's gonna pick up, it would pick up Slade Road, McIver.
Slade Road, that's right.
And Salter, that Salter Road area.
I think one of the times before, one of the biggest issues that was mentioned to us was coming under the railroad.
It ain't no problem, they can bore underneath it without any problem, they'd be done with that before you could shake a stick.
Getting approval, I think, is a problem.
Nah, that ain't no problem either.
Do it at night.
They'll tell you that they will, but Jesse James and them, that's the reason they robbed them places.
Joey, you know, we got water / sewer, and we don't have sewer, we just still got septic. But, I mean, and we looking at the future, what about, I mean, we couldn't look at, and I know we probably don't have near the amount of money through this program here or whatever, but a spray field or some kind in that area so that you have sewer and don't have the septic tanks, that may be something that we need to look at. I know, I think Midway got a spray field, and there's a spray field off of Barrington Ferry.
Right, that's right.
You know, so if we had something somewhere, you know, for our water customers, you know, maybe, I mean, Marcus was just here, we got water for another 120 or so houses, but if we had water and sewer, you know, that makes it more attractive and, you know, for future development, if you got water and sewer.
That would be part of your negative economic impact.
So why don't you let us see if we can get those other numbers for the water sewer side. I'll come and show you the budget on that sheet, which will be the main thing for y'all to look at. And then believe it is the end of September. We'll have to push send on that. So
Let's go back to the top bullet, because, you know, when we were here before, we had a request from a small business about some help because of their,
can I get into the ARPA, the local ARPA money?
all right, okay.
If I can on that.
All right, you can.
'Cause it's more descriptive.
Okay.
I'm gonna walk you through that.
All right.
Carefully. And so we'll go there. Actually, Mr. Mosley and Ms. McLaughlin are gonna help me. So, I've given you the handout. And first thing are the key dates. You know some of these, when they declared the health crisis. The covered period, you'll see this referred to a couple of times, actually began March 3rd of 21. We still have not gotten the final ruling from Treasury yet. They have not released their final rules on there. But we want to go ahead and do this for y'all so you can kind of be working on some things in that. You have to have all of your, should be ARPA funds obligated by December 31st of 2024, and then by December 31st of 26, all of them have to be spent on your projects. The primary objectives, and this is to make counties whole for those expenses incurred after March 3rd and provide support to the community in areas impacted by COVID-19. Now, I got a call from somebody the other day, and I believe it was about buying something, software somehow for a 911 system. And they said, hey, we understand that you can use that money to buy software from computer-aided dispatch systems. You're not gonna see that anywhere in here. Where you will see later on is counties that may have suffered a revenue loss and then take this money and use it to replace lost revenue. Mr. McLaughlin will maybe talk about that when she comes up. We ran that number, and fortunately or unfortunately, but fortunately, we did not have a negative revenue loss during the period of time. They're very specific about how you calculate that, but it's very, very specific to COVID. So these are the four major buckets, not three, four major buckets that you can use your local ARPA monies for, your rescue plan monies for. And you see there's a commonality with the state, water, sewer, broadband. There's the second one, that you see, that you can provide premium pay for eligible workers providing essential work. We're going to dig into these a little bit further. You can use money to mitigate the ongoing public health emergency and its negative economic impacts, which is where that other state came in, and then replace local government lost revenue, which we had none during that period of time. You can't use it for rainy day funds. Can't use it for reserve money. You can't use it to pay debt. And you can't use it to pay any money to the pension funds. This is a little bit of expansion again into the water sewer. Not to be confused with how the state's going to look at their money, but this is specific to counties and cities. Projects don't have to be related to COVID-19. So everything else is COVID-19 related. Broadband is not. Water sewer is not. You don't have to show anything was affected there. Just some notes for you there, things to look at. Basically, you need to have your plans ready to go if you're going to use them for those projects, remembering how short of a time frame you've got to get them obligated. But this is where your money would come from potentially to match those state dollars. So you use your ARPA money to go out there and grab some state dollars, many more state dollars, and as is noted in the last bullet. Premium pay for eligible workers. First, and I think I've got a note on the next slide. You cannot use it to pay people who did not actively work during the emergency. So working from home, you couldn't pay somebody if they stayed home and worked. If you had an office, which we didn't, had anybody that went home to work, this directly under your control, that went home to work and worked from home for that extended period of time, you could not pay them with any of these dollars.
What would be that extended period of time? Is it?
It says basically work from home, period.
So if you went home for, if you were quarantined and you went home for a week?
Well, this is really talking about those offices that shut down, like state government did. The DA's office, in fact, court was out. They worked from home. None of those folks that were county employees that are assigned to DA could be paid with these funds.
None of ours completely shut down?
None of ours completely shut down.
Okay, well, we good.
None of ours completely shut down.
Okay.
Big emphasis here, big emphasis on low to moderate income jobs, okay? So as you read Treasury ruling or the Treasury guidelines that came out, not the final rulings, it specifically lists janitors and sanitation workers. And it doesn't mean just those, but it's talking about lower paid employees that were out there every day. It even gave the example of handling the garbage and touching people that came into the transit systems and things like that. Janitors who cleaned the offices behind people that were sick and public that came in. Doesn't mean you have to only give it to them, but they want to make sure that they're included. Right. Okay. Again, transit staff, public health, safety staff, social service, and again, regular in-person interactions by handling of items that were handled by others. That's the key. So again, that's why anybody that worked from home would not be eligible for it.
Which, and from our standpoint, we didn't have no one to work from home.
We did not.
Okay.
Your offices stayed open. In fact, I can't think of an office that didn't handle something that either was coming in the mail or, that would meet that criteria.
Go back to that last bullet.
So it basically says that the chairman, chief executive, in this case, could say, look, you're going to give premium pay to eligible workers, and we'll talk about some bullets on this. And we feel like since everybody stayed and worked and everybody was affected, that everybody is eligible. You can declare others. Now, there are some exceptions, and I don't know that I got this deep into that. Actually, I did. This is the cap, okay? So it puts a limit on what you can give folks, up to $25,000 per eligible worker. They've got to be an essential employee. You can actually make that pay retroactive to January 27th, 2020, and it can be paid through the date the national emergency declaration ends, which is 2026. But here's some things to think about, and then I will tell you, ACCG's been monitoring it, we've seen stuff come across. What you really have to really think about is not making that a continuing salary, because the money's not coming back. It's one-time money. So I haven't seen a county or city that has done it based to increase hourly rates. They're giving it out as bonuses or premium pay, critical workforce pay, basically is what they're doing. And they're giving it out based on various levels, which is, we can furnish to y'all what we're seeing on those surveys. And they're giving it out this year, and then they're gonna reconsider it next year, and they're gonna reconsider it the following year into 2025, 26. But definitely the thing to remember is, don't give it as an increase to the hourly rate, because it's one-time money. It's not coming back.
How did they come up with the $13 an hour?
That's on the federal guidelines.
And Joey, go back to that. That's, let's say, proceed with caution, and this is something for us to consider. Okay. Doesn't mean that we could not raise the pay for our lower workers. It doesn't mean that we can't.
That does not mean you can't. You just need to pay that increase out of your general fund budget and not use our money for it.
Right.
Right, absolutely. I know y'all want to look at that also.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean,
Yes, sir.
you know, okay.
Yes, sir. I know
I mean,
that y'all
and what I'm talking about, I think I sent the email 2 or 3 months ago. That's not everybody. That's not everybody in the county, but it's a few that's way down that we need to do something for.
Yeah, and I won't get too much off on this to tell you that when UGA finishes what they're doing for EMS and fire, which is supposed to be later this month, we're supposed to have the review of that. We've already told them that the commission wants to take a look at what we call living wage, getting those rates up for the lowest paid employees, and so they're already going to put that on their radar. But no, sir, that means you don't have anything to do with that at all.
You say, and UGA is doing that? They probably still so happy that they won the game the other night. They probably ain't thinking about it yet.
As far as mitigating the public health emergency, you can use it for public safety and public health payroll to help do that. Again, you're going to see this again, but you shouldn't necessarily use it to increase those salary rates, but you can increase it to attract workers, as a matter of fact. I mean, EMS or fire, or whatever you're going to do, if you wanted to give
a bonus,
some kind of
sign-on bonus,
sign-in bonus,
yeah,
or something like that, you could use it for that. And these are for frontline positions. You could actually use it on some of the stuff for deputies and jailers and EMS folks. Okay. Again, the thing is, the people that were in the closest contact with people that had COVID exposure.
Mr. Brown, question, since you mentioned an EMS, since the county now, we have taken over EMS, they transitioned from the hospitals. Were there any money given to the hospital for EMS from the CARES?
I don't think so, Commissioner Stevens, and that's a good question, especially as we start talking about some other things y'all gonna talk about the upcoming month. Is I'm not real sure with the increase in their caseload, and I hate to say this on the media, but people in the hallways and the extra nursing and everything, I'm not sure where they're getting some of the reimbursement.
Well, the reason why I'm asking that, because if money was included at the hospital for EMS, but now they're under the Board of Commissioners, if money was, if that money stay over there, if any was given?
They were not. I can't answer this for you. They were not eligible for any of these monies.
Okay.
These went to cities and counties only. I don't know whether there was any hospital association funds or something. There's got to be something that hospitals can get some help with, but I'm not sure there is.
I haven't heard, I don't know.
Okay.
But they did not get any of these monies directly.
Okay.
They were not eligible for these. Again, if you're planning to return to reimbursements to general fund, what you can do is you could offset your payroll for a year or two for the length of the time that this money's here, as long as you don't re-obligate other monies that when this money's gone, that you don't have any more to pay those payrolls. So if you wanted to, I hate to throw something out, but if you wanted to take the payroll of, let's use EMS, for example, and say, look, we're gonna use ARPA money for this year to do that. We're gonna keep the recurring revenue stream for it over here next year, but for this year, we're gonna use ARPA monies to offset a portion of that payroll that's eligible, and then we're gonna shift that money for a capital project. Any capital project, you can do that. You just can't get rid of your other revenue source that when this money's gone away, you don't have it. You know what I'm saying? And that's why increasing hourly rates is dangerous in that regard, because you had not already had that in your budget to do. You don't have another revenue source for it already.
Let's say we do it for 2 years, that would give us 2 years to be looking at making that adjustment. So when that 2 years period is over with, we can do a lateral shift and still come up with the amount of money to keep that salary going.
Yeah, that's be kind of risky, but yeah. You're better to take, if you're gonna take this money and supplement it, to use it for recurring expense, you're better to do a one-time move.
Okay.
That's equal to that.
Okay.
Or something that's a capital, or something that's a one-time expense. Doesn't necessarily have to be capital.
Okay.
And just be upfront with the staff that this is only because of these special pot of funds that will not last forever.
No, they won't.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right.
But with that being said, we're just talking about the one time. So technically, we're talking about two separate things, because I know we're still talking about increasing.
You crossed over, that's right.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, that's right. Big thing that they talked about specifically in there, ventilation systems. So for instance, one thing that you'll see, I think it may be on here, it's on another one, that counties and cities ought to do is take your capital improvement plan, it's one-time money, what have I got to fund in the general fund as a capital improvement item, i.e. these 32 systems that you just approved in here, that you were gonna come out of your budget if you were gonna do that, take that money from ARPA, use it for that, and use the money that you had appropriated to do something else with. Replacement for planned objectives is what they really want to suggest. HVAC systems for ventilation, a biggie. Cybersecurity, we had stuff built in the budget this year to be able to do some stuff with. That would be a help. But we need to take a look at our CIP first. I've already kind of done that, but there's stuff in there that you've got that's coming up between now and 2026 that you're gonna have to replace. And instead of trying to budget the money for it, i.e. tax dollars, you might want to do a set aside of some of this money to have it out there for these qualifying projects. But you see basically what those are. Other county investments that were specifically mentioned, vaccination clinics. In fact, we're setting up one, so we helped the state actually set it up. It'll start next Monday down at Schumann Center. For that, we had to get a tent to do that for the drive-through. That would be an eligible reimbursement for some of these dollars to do that. And then you see some other under the county investment category. And again, if you create the capital investment, you have operational cost. Can't use this money for that. That's going to be in existence, so you'd have to have an alternative revenue source for that. So this is the replacement of lost revenue slide. If we had lost revenue, which I'm glad we didn't, then you could basically use, the amount of money you could show on lost revenue using the calculation methodology that they said you had to use in order to determine it, then you could basically use the money up to that sum for anything. It would be the most flexible environment. Again, fortunately, we didn't lose revenue when we do their calculations. And this is the funds to the outside agencies. So, Mr. Chairman, this will come back.
Okay.
You can do assistance directly to households. And you see what those could be under there.
This is where Manor House would fall?
No, sir. Actually, it would be under businesses,
Okay,
the small business.
okay.
Joey, go back to that other one where it says, okay, rent, mortgage, and utility assistance. That would be, I mean, we will allocate, we'll have that part of money going forward. It won't be for someone that was having problems a year ago.
Yeah, it would actually be somebody who couldn't pay their rent, couldn't pay their mortgage,
In 2020.
couldn't pay the utilities
In
during
20
that covered period.
During that time, okay.
A key thing to remember with both of these, and we've done a little exploration, is that the reporting criteria on what you have to show, make a business or make a household present is very similar to the federal requirement for emergency relief funds that the county gets. The county doesn't get it. Liberty County is granted it. There's an emergency fund appropriation committee that is headed up by United Way that basically screens those applications. So you would need to have an application process, and you'd need to have somebody to be able to screen applications for you. And likewise, then as the money's given out, have a return reporting requirement for those businesses and for those households. Businesses, if you look into the Federal Register, are gonna have to be able to show that they have financial statements and that they're not necessarily audited, but that they do regular financial statements so that they can show you the pattern of where they were, what happened in the trend that they lost, and more importantly, as they go forward with the next money. All that being said, I've reached out to both CRC and United Way, who have screening processes in place that would be happy if the commission wants to decide on an amount of money to issue to small businesses. They would help us with that screening process that would be in compliance with the federal guidelines.
Since I put it on the table, let's go ahead and talk about it. So when it comes once again to Manor House and their request, so it wouldn't be based on financial hardships.
It would be. It would be based on the hardship they suffered in the amount of people they had to serve.
Okay.
It was exacerbated by the COVID.
I see.
Yes,
I see the angle now.
And a good thing about, in Manor House, probably, gosh, I hope other businesses don't get on me for this, or other organizations like them.
Others.
Manor House is a real good record-keeping system that's audited every year. I know that without a doubt, they would be able to show before, during, and after, which is going to be important in that application
Okay,
process.
so Manor House or any other business would have
That's correct.
the same criteria.
They'd have to go through that.
To show the
same
financial
application
hardships.
process.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Got it.
Something obviously for the commission to think about is every city and every county got these funds. And so, businesses and or households, would the commission do those in the unincorporated area? Cities take care of those in their cities since they were recipient of the funds? Or does the commission cross over? And if they do cross over, how do you determine how much you want to cross over, right? Where you start and stop, and we can certainly try to figure something out, whatever the.
What was our lump sum?
Sir?
What was our allocation?
Your allocation was
Almost 12.
11.9, yeah.
Okay, so as a commission, then we would just set aside an allotment for, let's make an example, for small businesses, whatever that might, okay. Okay,
I suggest we do both. We have, some money allocated for the unincorporated area, and then also for the municipalities. We still represent all Liberty County. And I know for a fact the other municipalities, I don't know how much money they received or how they're handling it. But I'm still a huge advocate for small businesses. With me being a multiple small business owner, I understand it more than a lot. And still, to this day, small businesses are still the fabric of America. So whatever we could do to help them, let's do it.
You know, the only one municipality I heard from about their process, you know, sometimes through Commissioner Gillett, is City of Hines, but I haven't heard anything from the others, so they've all received some.
They, I know that
Funding?
they all made application for the dollars.
Mm-hmm.
There were 2 that were trying to work on something in the end and to get their
Application.
information filed. I'm not sure if they were able to
Okay.
make that or not.
Okay, so we may have to big brother.
How about
Hey,
the
that's what
Board
we
of
are.
Education?
Board of Ed would not have gotten any.
You know, cities and counties.
So it's just, that's what I'm saying, it just had a broad spectrum, make counties whole. And that's what I was wondering is, I mean, I don't want us to be looking at 11 million and they say, oh, yeah, we forgot to tell you now, the school board, y'all got to share with them.
Well, it's really at the discretion of the county. So you could reach out to school boards, you could reach out to hospitals, you could reach out to other
Well, the
health
hospital,
organizations. Yeah.
I mean, they've got, they probably had the most frontline folks out there working in it. But I mean, I just didn't know if that was the way it was gonna be. It is for each municipality to get a certain portion.
Yes, sir.
The county to get a certain portion, but the Board of Education does not.
Not of these funds.
I mean, you would think they're the ones that probably, the teachers.
I do want to say, and I'll go look at the state site again tomorrow. I do believe, I'm almost 100%, that the state, out of some of their ARPA money, created an educational fund.
And the governor gave some funds to.
Yeah, so it's I'm pretty sure that is one of the grants that's out there too, is an educational fund grant. And I'm not sure, I haven't been in there and looked it out.
Yeah,
But that's a good point, Dave.
I think all the
I mean, you
teachers
got
got
school
$1,000, didn't they? I think they all got, the governor gave some,
I don't know.
Yeah,
School bus driver.
On the OPB website, there's an
something was done for
educational
teachers.
allowance there to do that.
But you're gonna give us the, also you said you're gonna give us some notes to look at from what other counties are doing.
Yes, sir, we can go back and track the listserv on what they're doing for disbursement of the monies.
Okay.
And more particularly, what we've seen as it relates to premium pay.
Okay.
That's
And
all over the board a little bit.
And Joe, you did say with our 11 million or whatever that number is, that we could also be eligible to get some assistance from the state as well.
Could you use it for state matches, which the water project is an example of that, or the road project could be.
Dates, Joey. Now, you've given 20 and 2021. Exactly when, I mean, are we looking at people that was hired and employed by the county in 2020? Or are we looking at those that was retained through 2021?
No, you could actually, there's no look-back period as far as employees go. The premium pay for workers can be paid to anybody that was here or not during that time period. But you can go back to anybody that's still on board and pay them back to that period. You would not compensate people that are no longer with you, but you could go back if you have an employee that was affected and use the money to pay them. I don't think I've seen a county that's doing that. You've looked at it. They're mostly looking go forwards, and they're doing blocks of money. They're doing, you know, some as low as $25, but others, you know, $250 and $400, or $400 and $800. We'll get you those. You can see them by county, what they're doing. And they're for classes of employees, which is what the act says. You know, they're giving those lower paid people that the act specifically targeted a certain amount and others another
I
amount.
think I heard him right, though. He's trying to start the timeline. So this is people who are on staff from January 2020 until now? Was their eligibility cutoff?
You didn't necessarily have to, you don't have to be here. You didn't have to be here in 20 to get this premium pay money.
Yeah.
But if you,
What I'm saying is
wanted to back up.
an employee was here, he worked through 2020. The chairman said, I can't wait to 2021. When I get sworn in, he's gonna go. And he's gone. That guy, which it's not happening, but you got something like that could have happened. That employee won't get paid for him being here and helping out the whole time.
No, sir. You wouldn't, you couldn't compensate anybody that's no longer on the payroll.
Okay.
They've got to be on the
Active
payroll.
employment.
Gotta be here.
Gotta be present to win.
Yes, sir, got to be on the payroll.
Okay.
That's fine.
There was a thing about the industries, and then that's what I mentioned, hospitality, travel, tourism. So, yeah, I mean, theoretically, you could, if you had a local industrial board that handled money to industries or formed a coalition of an industrial board, they could, if the industry could show they're going to negatively impacted and you had enough money to do it, you could divvy out money to those industries or something similar to the small business.
Let me give this example. There have been some nonprofits who have not been able to hold their annual fundraising activity because of COVID. So where does that fall?
Those nonprofits would have to be able to show that they took an economic loss during that period, and they would apply as a small
Okay.
business,
All right. Okay.
basically.
That, they've been asking.
But let me say this now, I don't know, and we'll dig into this a little bit, I don't know that I've seen money given to non-business related associations. So, and I realize a business is a business when I say that. So I'm sitting under thinking of a nonprofit agency that just takes in money and gives out money, right? It's not like the Manor House, it doesn't actually open the doors every day and turn on the lights and have power and have a budget.
Just for instance, there's sororities and fraternities that have annual events.
Civic clubs. I'm
Yeah,
not
right.
sure.
Where they raise money to give
I'm not
scholarships.
sure, I don't think they don't have a business permit. So I'm not sure that you could classify them as a business and give them money
Yeah,
under this. We can see
Please-
if we can find an answer
please
to that
do.
question, but I don't.
because they hadn't been able to hold their annual fundraising stuff for scholarships and stuff. You know.
Yeah, but they're not actually running a business,
Business, I understand.
and that's gonna be the.
Check it out.
I will. That's gonna be the
I
problem.
need to give them an answer.
Okay. And again, when you give it out, it's not coming back. So here's your reporting deadlines. I'm gonna let Kim talk a little bit about the reporting.
She still back there?
You wanna mention the reporting?
We got our August 31st report in. We will have a report due at the end of the month following each quarter that specifically identifies all costs, all expenditures, and we'll have to provide the substantiating evidence of those expenditures and a narrative explaining how they relate and what category specifically they fall under. Our first report was easy because it was 0. 0, 0, 0. The only thing that got a little tricky is when we did the revenue, negative impact on the revenue calculation. We did not lose revenue. We gained revenue actually, but that had to do with the online taxing for online sales. So, and when you compare that to the last full fiscal year before COVID, which is fiscal year 18, it was easy to show that we actually gained more revenue than the percentage that they even allowed us. So, that's it for the reporting. It's, like I said, when we actually get into the process of where we have distributed funds, I'll see what they accept. I know, with the CARES money, that was a lot of work. I mean, that was a lot of evidence, very specific reporting and evidence that we had to submit in order to, receive that money. And ours went through really well, but it was a lot of work. So I'm guessing it's gonna be the same type of evidence, some payroll reporting or, check copies and invoice copies, contracts, narratives, all of the above.
Key takeaway on the reporting thing too is that basically we're gonna be audited. And so we've gotta be sure that it meets everything, as Kim mentioned, documentation is critical. Again, there's only an interim rule out right now, we're waiting on the final rule, which may clarify some other things for us on our reporting. Anything that we spend has to fit in one of these 7 categories. They give you a specific chart of account list that you've got to fit them in, and that they've got to be in here. And I just pulled off one. Let's remember the notes at the bottom where the recipients, and we're responsible for the money that we spend and that we give out, and subject to have to pay it back. Top note that you'll see on the next one denotes where the report's got to show that it was primarily serving disadvantaged communities. The asterisk, you've got to be able to identify the funds that were allocated to evidence-based interventions. And I think I see something that's going to answer our question on that.
Excuse me, before you turn, so were those the additional, because I know on the last slide, we talked about a couple slides back with the 4 major buckets. Mm-hmm. So are those additional major buckets?
No, sir. No, sir. But these are expenditure categories. And so out of those buckets, any project that you do, you've got to mark them to one of these categories. They have to fit. And this is, maybe this helps a little bit. Each of those categories, for instance, negative economic benefits, if you were going to do that one, each of these categories is this detailed.
Okay.
So if we say we're going to give money to nonprofit organizations, they've got to show that money loss was to evidence-based intervention programs. Mm-hmm. In other words, it would be a nonprofit that, well, like the Fraser Center, that was offering services to COVID-related counseling or something they were doing. But you're going to have to drive back with evidence-based data, not just having the revenue, if you're a nonprofit. So again, perfect example. If we were going to give that money to a nonprofit, it's going to go in expenditure category 2.10, and it's got to show the intervention programs that they did that were COVID-related in order to get it as a nonprofit.
Not just their loss of funds because they could not schedule a event.
Right. They would have had to be engaged in COVID intervention and lost funds through that.
That makes it tough.
It does make it. These make it tough. And we can give you all the expenditure codes that you'll see. This is the detail they're going to want. And I just want you to see as an example.
Question, Mr. Chairman. Just a question. I know we had shared an email amongst us here recently where we were talking about doing public service announcements, trying to get the word out about this, how what condition Liberty County is in, how the spread is affecting the community. I see where it says health, that public service announcements, we couldn't use none of that money to educate the public.
You sure could. You can use it to educate the public. You could use it as incentives to encourage the public to get vaccinated. I mean, that's exactly what that would be.
Because I think we were shared email amongst us where we were discussing how to get the word out, what more can we do as a group. And the suggestion, or the one suggestion that I explored, was us doing the public service announcements, even if we had to go to national TV, regional TV, radio, whatever, and those funds would, we could reach a broader swath of people through those avenues if we could use that money toward that also.
Something that Commissioner Fraser, in fact, I think bounced back on one of those emails was not intervention clinics, but vaccination clinics. So right now, we're at kind of the mercy of the state as far as vaccinations go and paying people to be there and things like that. But you could use this money to do some more outreach for vaccinations or testing to do that. I'm going to let Mr. Mosley talk about the planning. One thing that Georgia Municipal Association and ACCG recommends is that you do a plan for use of the funds. Number one, to check the boxes and make sure you're going to be in compliance with what the Act allows you to use the money for. But I think what you're going to hear us talk about is going in and doing a plan through 2026. this shows your allocation of funds, and doing that under a planning scenario.
So all of you got ideas in terms of how the money ought to be spent. So what planning does is it provides you a framework to start prioritizing. What do we want to accomplish? Think about this in terms of the areas that Joey mentioned earlier. How can we make sure the monies we spent are within the framework of the ARPA guidelines? So we identify the priorities, and we make sure we do the research. Remember, keeping in mind, whatever projects we do, the money has to be obligated, which means we lay inside this money on December the 31st, 2024, but by 2026, it has to be spent. And if it's not spent, guess what?
Have to be returned.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So we answer 4 questions when we're planning. Where are we now? Where do we want to go? How do we get there? And when do we get there in terms of time frame? Here's a framework that the Institute of Government recommended in terms of how do we put the planning process to work. They recommend that staff work with a subcommittee that this body establishes to identify projects and the needs and available funding, and start doing your research, and then synthesize, staff help to synthesize it with the subcommittee. Then we invite partners, potential partners, others to solicit them for their ideas in terms of how can we spend the money. We reassess it with this body, and we adjust the plan as needed, and then y'all adopt the plan. And then I believe, if I read it correctly, I think we commit to Treasury in terms of the obligation of those funds. We submit that to the Department of Treasury. And the last slide is, hey, could be a model. For instance, one of the actions we want to complete the water system. We'll allocate $256,000 in 2022 to be completed, and that project is done away with. We want to upgrade the HVAC systems throughout the county. In 2022, we allocate $250,000. In 2023, we'll allocate $100,000. In 2024, $50,000. In 2025, $50,000. Then we're completed with the HVAC systems. And we want to make improvements to Liberty County Jail. We allocate $100,000 over the next 4 years, making significant improvements. So those are types of projects that as you guys begin to think about them, you begin to start prioritizing them and allocating funds in terms of how you want to be spent in all the different categories, because all of you mentioned different things that you'd like to see happen. Keep in mind, $11.9 million only goes so far. So you got to be strategic in terms of what you plan and how you plan.
This is where Interstate Paper Road could go?
Well, so basically, I think what you'd have, really, and he uses the water, I think you show your entirety of what you want to do there so that your match of your funds does go to Interstate, or a match goes to that road project, a match will go to the water system and some of those, even though those are in conglomerate with a state match, but that is where it would goes on that planning chart. Expand a little bit, so, could you go out there and just make changes to the jail? No. What you'd have to be able to show in your reporting is that you made changes to the jail areas that were related to separation required by COVID. What they had to do, they weren't able to do, really good, was to separate those prisoners and segregate them. The COVID, they were trying to put them in one wing, the non-positive ones in another wing, ran into a lot of trouble. But the fact is, you need to do renovations in one of those areas anyway. So it's a chance to possibly use some of this money instead of your general fund or sales tax that you want to do other projects with, having to come in and do that. This could be a little more flexible for you. Certainly, there's old HVAC systems at the jail. They run about $50,000 a piece. We've already replaced 2. There's 2 more that's got to be replaced. You're going to do that through sales tax or your general fund. That's how that jail would fit in. You couldn't just add a kitchen in the jail or anything like that. But certain aspects of these projects, you could pick them apart. Health Department. One of the final things that Treasury hadn't ruled on is whether you can build an entire facility with these funds. It says improvements to facilities. Well, I could say that a brand new health department is certainly
Great improvement.
but it's not really to an existing facility. So that's one of the questions that a lot of counties and cities have asked is, can you build a whole new building? What I know you could do, and we've talked about this, is take that health department when you get it planned and let it fund the vaccination wing or the nurses wing or something that you could tie back to that COVID and things you weren't able to do. So you could use some of these monies to infuse that project probably, is what you could do. We do think as staff, the right thing to do is for you to have a subcommittee that works on it. That, number one, takes that budget that you've got and sees how we can replace some of that money with some of this money to help you go further with your current budget, but also to look at stuff like assistance to businesses, premium pay, some of those things too, and maybe come back to the commission under these guidelines that Mr. Mosley's mentioned, and have several sessions with the commission as that plan goes along. And I know that time is of the essence, but we still hadn't got the final ruling. I don't hesitate to tell you that anything you're seeing tonight is not going to be replaced. There may be some added to it, probably just clarifications, and I think the health department's a perfect example of whether you can do a whole structure with that thing or not. But we don't have any idea when that final rule may come out. But certainly the committee could go ahead and start work.
Joey, and not that, that we would take on a project such as that, but that subdivision on Leroy Cofer, the trails, you know, the people from that subdivision, they've been here several times, and you know we hadn't. That's not ours, but if there was some way we can get that clear, I don't know how we could.
I don't see it. Yes, sir. I don't see it with the ARPA money. You know, if you had that upgrade already planned somewhere, then you could take ARPA money. You couldn't use it for that project. No, you couldn't use ARPA money for just a road project. It's going to have to be tied to one of these buckets.
But I mean, it's never really been cleared. We don't own it. That's clear for us that we don't own it. Okay. But it's some nice homes out there, but it's those roads are just like dirt roads.
No, it's worse than a dirt road.
There's two or three.
It's worse than.
It is worse than dirt road.
It's bad.
It's really bad.
Let me mention something, and I know Chairman talked about Interstate Paper Road, and I don't know, I think since I've been up here, we've resurfaced or done it 3 times. But I know part of that belongs to the city of Riceboro, part of it belongs to the county. But there's a road that's more heavily traveled than that one, and that's that Islands Highway. And I have spoke about it, and I know that we're looking at the industrial side of that, but that's a road that we need to get off the ground from on this side of that interstate and go forward with it, because it is, I'm telling you, that place down there is going to be a nightmare. And if you've got to evacuate ever again, there's already, 10,000 more people down there than what there was when Hurricane Floyd came through. So I just hope we talk about the water, but we don't never put nothing down. And we get reports about something that somebody goes and looks at, but there's nothing in writing on it. Now, that's what I'm saying about this thing with this central water system that the Chairman McIver looked at, and we all went on board with it. And of course, I think Simonton's group was engineering it. I mean, those documents, we got to make sure we keep them, because, and I'm sure that they're ours. It was a USDA grant, wasn't it?
Yes, sir, we
ought to have all of that stuff to know where we can go with the water and stuff like that. It's a shame that, we've got somebody that's saying, I really don't know if we can buy this piece of property because we don't know if we can get water to it. But, in fact, it's a simple thing. All we've got to do now is turn it loose and let them do the planning and zoning for it. But I don't have a problem doing something in interstate paper as long as Riceboro get in with it. But them guys in them log trucks, they never had to get out of them log trucks. And Commissioner Jones will tell you, they drive up there, they get the logs off, and they go. and they beat the road out both ways, loaded and unloaded. And I don't believe I've ever seen, since I've been up here, a speeding ticket on that road. Anytime. So there's no revenue coming off of it. We may be,
Don't call me out, because I'm
well, I ain't gonna call you out. I mean, you just been in there a very short time, so I'm not gonna.
It's been 8 years now.
Huh?
It's been 8 years.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, time flies. But I totally agree with Commissioner Walden. I'm not against that project, but whenever I look at the allocation of these funds and how we disperse them, I'm always looking at where we get the most bang for our buck, and especially with dealing with our citizens. I've been saying that with how we allocate our SPLOST funds, and I feel the same way with this. And I'm looking over it and reviewing it, and it talks about the different industries that have been impacted. I mean, to me, when I look at infrastructure, I don't look just below ground. If you look at most communities and cities, whenever they discuss infrastructure, they're not just talking about sewer and water. They're talking about what's above ground as well. So, I mean, whenever we're dealing with tourism, travel, hospitality, and all that, I think we just really need to sit down and really, like you said, come up with a committee to really look at this money, because, of course, we need to take care of our employees. That's public safety as well. But also, when we're looking at, like you said, being able to upgrade or look at projects that we've already been discussing, and see where we could go with that. I mean, I'm even looking at it, and it's talking about different development authorities, i.e. Economic Development Authority that we kind of discussed. All of that could kind of work in together. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to be able to, serve our public, from the private sector to the individual in their household. So I'm just ready for us to come up with, Mr. Chair, come up with a committee or whatnot, and let's review this. And
We're here. What size committee are you recommending, sir? Do you have a?
7, odd number.
That really doesn't need to be any more than 3.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's gonna be a call meeting.
No, that's true. That's true.
I'll serve on it, Mr. Chairman.
You will?
I will.
You will?
Whoever.
I don't need to be on the committee, but I am going to turn in my report.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing too,
Everybody
because
put
it's
their
gonna take
input.
some looking into that budget and doing some things with the budget document and all that. I mean, it's gonna take some time. And I would think the committee, certainly at your guidance, would take into consideration everything, come back with something, and take some more consideration in as y'all think about other things, and that we don't rush into it. And then I think, and we've talked about it, I think we all agree, the best thing, because this is the money you're gonna get through 2026, so you need to think about things that you don't know about. And as you go out there and make those allocations every year for a block of money, you ought to reserve some money. Because, you're gonna keep dealing with tents and vaccination sites and whatever it may be, and if you don't have any money that you can go to specifically for those purposes, then you're gonna come out of the general fund with it. So some reserve would probably be good too. Better cautious, and you can still allocate it, and then all turns out good and you've got more.
But Joe, now, you said it's got to be spent by,
Has to be fully spent by 2026.
and if you're talking about tents and vaccination sites and everything, so, I mean, if we setting up tents in 20, how do you set aside?
Well, no, I think you just come in, boy, you could do it so many ways, but it's whatever y'all want to do. I think you come into that plan, and then, in each year, you decide your own buckets of money that you want to allocate to these areas right here. Those are really your spending categories. And then you'll have the detail that's underneath that we can furnish to the committee and to the commission that says, just like I showed you in that one example, even a more in-depth of how you have to code the project you're thinking about. So I think you just think about the projects you want to do, and let's try to make them fit somewhere. Either they will or they won't. And then you develop your buckets of money in those spending categories, so much each year. Reserve you some money for tents and vaccinations in 2024, 2025. You don't need it, you'll spend it in another bucket category.
I hope we don't never have to spend it past 2021.
I agree.
I know.
I mean, I tell you, this is a terrible thing.
It is, yeah.
All right, you gonna serve, sir? Commissioner Stevens, okay. All right.
Got it.
Got our three?
We'll go ahead and start setting some calendars, and you know, you're gonna be doing a bunch during this next month too, with meeting dates of your redistricting and things,
yeah.
so, but I want us to go ahead and get cranking on this.
Okay.
How long is it gonna be, 6 months?
Or,
I'm talking about the committee.
oh, no, it doesn't have to be. Quick as the committee can work it and come back to y'all and give you, give you some feedback, and the commission finalizes the plan.
Well, let's do it this way then. Let's let those two go for a couple of weeks. Commissioner Jones and I'll go for a couple of weeks, and then Commissioner Gillard and Ms. Thrift can maybe go.
I don't talk about on the committee.
No, I'm just talking about your ideas. You're still gonna have your ideas, but I mean, it's liable to be an hour lunch that you could come in and sit down and talk about it. I mean, I don't think, nobody plans on sitting down for all day long. That's very unproductive.
We'll work several hours a day that we do, and it might be that what you want to do for the committee is give us, we've heard a lot. We've already heard a lot, we've been capturing a lot, but send those to me, send them to Mr. Mosley. And then as you think of more, send some more.
I understand. I'm just, the way we're structured with what we talked about earlier, my district is inside the city. A lot of the chairman's is inside all the cities. And
Oh, you talking about on the redistricting?
No, I'm just saying that I don't want to be presenting something that the city's presenting that's already got out there. And I'm just saying, I think that, I can communicate with either person that's up here, but I'm just saying to try to make sure that we've got this thing whole, that the chairman, when he goes in there, he said, I had 3 good votes on this one right here. Now, we need to talk about it. Or he might have had 4 good votes or whatever it was. It's not going, it'll be attaboys or whatever, but I think that it's just healthy to have other folks in there. I don't have to. You can have 1 or 2 of your staff that wants to do it. I'm just saying, need across the board.
Certainly.
We're human. We make mistakes up here all the time, but sometimes that fellow on the outside can see things that we can't, so.
Absolutely. However y'all want to gather it, and then we'll put that plan together. And then in the end, the board will adopt that plan, and the plan can be changed for needs that come up, right?
Right, something may come up.
Decide you want to do it.
Right, next year that we don't have this year.
I'd go ahead and set the blocks out for the years, or set it for a couple of years and reserve the rest, and then go back and do the process again. However the commission wants to do that. We'll get started on it right away.
Let's just get started.
Yes, sir, we're anxious to do that.
We'll tweak it as we go along.
Thank you for your diligence. Sorry, it's
No, I knew we would need time for that.
it's a detailed
That's why I put
deal
it-
there.
Had to put to the end of the agenda so we can have ample time to discuss it.
Well, I hope I didn't have it all drawn out, but I just wanted to make a point that it's,
We did. Recreational lease,
Yes, sir, very, very good. This is just a draft. Some of y'all are aware that the lease we had on the recreation center expired. We don't need to worry because nothing's changing unless you want to change it in a new lease agreement. This is simply something for you to take away tonight. This is the old lease agreement redone with new dates is all it is. So, if you want to try to furnish any feedback, and I can give it to Kelly before the next meeting. Riceboro has not seen this. I thought we'd get together, and if there's any changes y'all wanted to suggest or make, then, we could we'll furnish whatever draft to them after we finish a draft, if that's okay.
I think if it was working like it was, just leave it like it is.
Okay.
They meet once a month only?
They meet once.
Once a month, so now they won't see it. Well, if we bring it back to mid-month,
We can.
then they'll have it first of October.
And I can go ahead, Commissioner Stevens, if you want me to, if the board's okay with it, and just furnish them with this
I would.
as a draft and say the board seems amenable to this and is gonna consider it their mid-month. I can get that out to them tomorrow.
Yeah, but they can look at it.
Agreeable.
I have the attorney look at it.
Okay?
And the other properties that we have, I know one time when I was on that, we had talked about the other ones, make sure we, keeping up with them. I mean, I know Mr. Stewart's gone, and I don't know how many folks is still down there from the National Guard Armory, and that one is good for another.
Well, y'all just renewed it, this year, as a matter of fact. I carried it over to Tom Ratcliffe and Mr. Stewart. Actually, when we renewed it last year, Mr. Stewart was gone and Johnny Smiley was doing it. And then there's another John Smiley,
Right.
who's now doing it. I don't know him.
Yeah.
So he has got that. We've already approved it and executed.
So the Homestown piece is done too.
Now, the Homestown piece is actually a lease with the trustees of Homestown.
Okay.
And I'm trying to figure out who is
Who's
still
the
on that
trustee?
trustee group.
Right.
So that we can get that executed again. That's a good point. I pulled it, it's on my desk, as a matter of fact.
All right.
Right.
Announcements?
No, sir. Other than the testing site that's opening on Monday down at Schuman Center, and the tent set up today. They're doing a walkthrough tomorrow with it, with DPH. And that site will be there really as long as the need exists, from what they're saying.
Will it be rapid MPCRs or?
It, I don't think it's rapid.
Okay.
I think they're only doing the long test.
PCRs?
Yes, sir. Because that's all the health department does. Okay. I'm pretty sure that's all they're doing. I'll double check that, though.
All right. All for the good of the order, Chair, take a motion.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Just the millage.
Yeah, I haven't had any response from.
Oh, nobody did?
Out last week about scheduling some time to come by and review the millage. I have one.
Done by Friday.
They're scheduled tomorrow morning, but I haven't heard back from anybody.
Me and Ed.
I called you and nobody picked up, so I figured you was not there. But we wanted to come Friday morning.
Come Friday.
Okay.
Friday morning at,
Somewhere about 9,
I'll be there at 9:15.
between 8:30.
Commissioner Jones, you want to get in?
I won't
Look at
be
your schedule.
available Friday. I'll probably, my earliest day will be Monday, if possible.
I understand.
I'll write it down. We can get
Okay.
that with you.
Okay. All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Have a great evening. We did well.